Yo, it's Guido coming at you with a tactics talk and an update on WoT Needs Fixing. My attempt to get some information from the community, from this community, on things that could be done better by Wargaming in terms of its game. I got a lot of good feedback, so I wanted to give you an update. I've taken all of it, collated it. In general, I haven't discarded anything just out of hand, although there was a couple I guess I probably just said no to, but really most of it, 99% of it went through. I took out some of the language like wargaming, you ignorant, whatever kind of stuff, and tried to keep it just to the things that people wanted. So I want to go through the list as I have it now. I've broken it out into some headings, things like UI and garage, battle reports, battle UI, that kind of stuff. Could probably be broken down into several others after that. But we're going to go through these one by one, and I want to see if that stirs up any more info out of you guys. If maybe you hear something say, ooh, but what about this? Or, oh, that reminds me, here's another thing I would like to have. And I will say that generally my intention here is to come up with stuff that is kind of easy fixes in terms of little things. And I will include the stuff like RNG and matchmaker this and that and the other, but I'm more talking about quality of life stuff that's in the garage. Little things that can be fixed, okay? So I will pass the rest of that stuff. We will cover those when we get to the list right here in just a second. But really, I'm looking for things that are going to be useful for everybody. Vice your matchmaker is crap and it needs to be ±1 or something like that. That will be in there. I will forward that stuff because I think it's also useful that Wargaming knows what people are thinking. And I know they have a lot of ways to collect this. Wargaming, if you're watching this, I know you have all kinds of ways to collect it. More than likely, you figure that your, I'm going to say, corporate ways of doing it are better. I don't know. Maybe they are, but I throw this out just in case. Maybe, even if there's one or two things on here that stirs some conversation for Wargaming, or they say, oh, that's not a bad idea, that would be cool. But if it goes nowhere, whatever, it was a fun exercise for all of us to kind of talk about it, because that's what we do here, right? I'm a community contributor, I'm a content creator on YouTube, and we talk about stuff. So we might as well talk about it. Let's talk about it, all right? Coffee talk, you know what I'm saying? Here's my list on my very cleverly done Word document, all right? UI Garage, we'll start off with that. First one is Hall of Fame. All right, this is a big one for me. It's one of my little personal both pet peeves and pet possibility things. The Hall of Fame has been out for a long time in beta, and it really has languished. It's just sort of like abandonware at this point, right? Abandoned content within the game. It's got cobwebs on it. The door is hanging off the frame a little bit. There's weird creaks up in the attic, and people go in there, but they don't know what the hell they're in there for, that kind of stuff. I really think Wargaming, there's a ton of content involved. I think there's a whole video on that, to be quite honest. Things you could do at the Hall of Fame and make that kind of end-game content, make it contests, best tanker in Tank X for the month, best tanker in any of the tanks, depending on the numbers, most kill. I don't know, something. You could do so many things with the Hall of Fame in terms of stats and how well people do or don't do. You could even do that kind of stuff. You have a lot of possibilities in the Hall of Fame. That being said, it would be nice if all the tanks actually got put in there when they got released. I don't understand that. I can't comprehend why it takes so long. So really just that part. And there's a couple of, and I'm not going to dig into the UI today necessarily. We're going to go through this faster, I promise you, once I get past this soapbox action with the Hall of Fame. There's a lot of stuff you could do in there right away that would be really beneficial, basically, is what I'm trying to say. I lost my complete train of thought. That's fine, doesn't matter. Sorting for styles, decals, etc., or at least make them listed in alphabetical order, please, for the love of everything. All right, there's a lot of comments about the styles, decals, inscriptions, all that stuff. Better ways to sort. We'll talk about the rest of them here. Sell, trash, or hide decals you do not want. I don't really understand why you can't sell them. I guess some of it's IA stuff, or IP, intellectual property based on deals with companies. I don't know what the real reasons are, but it would be nice if you could hide them just to get rid of them and at least put them in alphabetical order of some kind, or an order that makes sense. Because if there is an order, I don't know what it is, because it's just slapped on there, and sometimes it takes a long time to scroll through those things. So some kind of sorting, ability to hide, ability to trash. Ability to remove rentals. This has been an issue, I think, for a long time. There's a couple different kinds of rentals. I know we've gone through this in the CC channel. It would be nice if you could just say, I don't want it. Delete. All right, that would be great. Get it out of there. Convert garage slots into bunks. I didn't really think about that. That's not a bad idea. Or really the other way around. You know, it could be a let's call it a losing conversion, meaning that you need a lot for a little, so that you can't just, you know, do some kind of crazy buy some and then get a discount or whatever. People are always trying to min-max stuff, right? But that being said, if there's ability to trade a bulk of them in for something useful, and it wouldn't even have to be garage slots to bunks, it could be something else. That would be cool. I have 600 something garage slots. All right, Battle Hits Viewer and Armor Inspector in vanilla. This is one that's been asked for a long, long time. In the UI, the ability to do that kind of thing that you can do on third-party sites. Honestly, I don't know why that's not in the game. I know that's been said 100 times. You guys know why it's not. I don't get it. Sell crew skins, interesting. So there's a possibility there. Permanent log of received goods, not just in the session log. That's a good one because as you log in and log out, you lose that session log, and then it's hard to find out if you got something or not. It would be nice if you had a permanent list of some kind, and it could go back a month or whatever the case may be. That would be a nice thing to have. Small flag on the crew cars to show nation locked. Like you have the little commander symbol, the nation flag should be there. It is so bloody annoying to have to click on the character in the barracks to find out what nation he is or what nation's locked to him or whatever. That would be nice if it was on the outside of it there. A way to search for purple and pink equipment. I know this one's been asked for, especially for your top-end players. It is such a pain to find that stuff on where it is. And I know there's a little place you can hover and it will tell you, but at the same time, that cuts off because there's not enough room. There needs to be some kind of extra page or something somewhere where you can find all that equipment listed and listed what tank it is in, and a way to click on that tank and get there. That would be very nice. Multiple crew books at one time. Oh my goodness, please stop making us click every single book. If we have multiples of something, make a slider or something to where we can use multiples on one person, for the love of everything. Really anything that can be used multiple times, as I just said. Switch equipment from one tank to another, kind of like the crew switching. I know there's several suggestions like this to make the auto return stuff better and to have one for equipment in there. More granularity and detail about critical hits and module damage. I know that's kind of coming, so we'll have to wait and see what that looks like when you get here, but that is one people have been asking for. More garage filter options. I have a short list here, but right now you can do, I can't remember what you guys call it, but you can mark tanks as primary, I think you call it. But that's it. That's the only kind of sorting you can do in your garage. And when you get a lot of tanks, that's very painful. It would be nice if you had 2 or 3 options in their favorites, or maybe just option 1, 2, and 3, or maybe allow people to name the option. Let them have 3 different settings for where they put tanks, and they can name it something like that to help us sort in the garage better, at least between the tanks. Recently used, here's a couple of options. Non-elite, levels of primary, select from the last recently used, or a way to sort it better, favorites, etc. Better ways to sing where the XP is. This is in relation to every time we have to deal with the free XP thing. There is a little, you click up there in the top right, you go to the conversion box, and then it does show you a list of tanks, and it shows how many experience points they have. The problem with that one is if you're working on free experience, there's no way to tell if that tank is done with its free experience, for one thing, i.e. an elite kind of idea for free experience, where you're done with your field mods. There's no way to know that, so that people then will be using free experience they're trying to build up for field mods, and they'll forget, and then they'll use it in the conversion. So I know I mix those up a little bit. Use experience on the combat experience on the tank to turn into free experience when they're trying to do field mods. I think you understand where I'm going with that. Quick way to see if a crew is 0 skill. I think that's in there somewhere, but again, on the outside card, it would be nice if there was another little symbol to let you know it was 0 skill. So I could look at the character in the barracks, and I could tell if it's position locked, if it is nation locked, if it is 0 skill. I think those are the 3 big ones right there. And yes, in the nation lock. I said that. That's right. Buy crew skins for credits or gold. There you go. You might sell some of those. That's not a bad idea. Auto equipment return we talked about. Better auto crew return we talked about. I can probably delete both of those because it looks like we covered them. 3rd and 4th level on the carousel, my friends. Please, that's what all the mods had. When you put in the new carousel, I said, great, awesome, they listen. And then you only did 2. If that was a situation with potato computers in another part of the world, that is probably gone by now. It would be really nice to have a third and fourth at least. Show VR when binocs are equipped in 2 numbers. That goes to the numbers where you show all the stats on tanks. That would be a nice thing right there, because I think right now it actually shows the view range with the binocs activated when you put the binocs on. It really should show it binocs with the binocs turned on and not turned on. There should be 2 numbers in there so people can know what the difference is. Make the platoon box smaller, or at least be able to minimize it or change it. It does kind of get in the way. It's this big box in the middle of the UI right there. And the only thing you can do is send it down to the bottom, but then you can't see what your platoon mates are doing. So you can't really see your garage. You can't work with it. You got this big giant box in the way right there. So that would be a nice little quality of life. Filter for field mods to know which are and are not finished, we talked about. Sort and convert XP, we talked about. I would like to be able to activate clan PRs from the same page you activate the other ones. That was a great change, but you still have to click now and go into the clan page and click some more. So it'd be nice if you could just click them on right there if you are a person who has the ability to do so. Execs or whatever the level it is that does that. Battle reports. This is a Guido personal pet peeve. After battle names should not be anonymized on the final team card after the game. If you want to put the anonymous name after the real name, or maybe have to hover over it to get the anonymous name they were in the game, that I would put the main name on the card. It's really annoying, the whole anonymizer thing, but that's a whole other subject. All right, battle UI. This is in the game, things in the game. Individual HP for each tank on the top bar. We have a lot of ways to get HP, but somebody did mention they'd like to have that over on the top bar. It would be kind of small, I think. Minimap markers. All right, this is a big one for me. When you're looking at the minimap on the bottom right, if a tank icon gets to the right side of the screen, the names all sit to the right of the icon, and they disappear off the edge of the map. When they get near the right side of the map, they should shift to the left. That is such a basic gaming programming thing. I do not understand how that has not been fixed, but that would be really fantastic. I like this one. An I'm sorry command added to the comm wheel, just in case you bump somebody or get in their way or you ram them and it was unintentional. That would be actually really cool. An I'm sorry kind of idea right there. Allow positive feedback in the game. So maybe hey, good job, or there is a thank you, but some kind of positive feedback after battle. Not allowed between platoon mates. And I think what they're getting at there is there's some kind of reward to it, potentially maybe some credits, or if people vote at the end for the MVP or who knows, maybe have something like that and a couple of extra credits get chucked their way. That would actually be pretty cool. You'd have to worry about platoons and clans and things, but it could definitely be worked on. Add in a range to target option for the overhead marker for friendly or hostile vehicles. That would be cool. Identify players in battle on the friends list. I would really love, you have on the list, you have the people in your blacklist. Why not have little markers for people in your friends list? That would be really cool. All right, gameplay mechanics. This is now dialing back from quality of life in the garage or in the game to bigger picture kinds of stuff. Look, some of this stuff is really, really big picture, and I'm just going to throw this out for myself, but your premiums need balancing. It's a mess. I'm just going to leave it at that. That's about 42 other videos. All right, make basic skills linear in progression. I think some of that's being worked on with the new crew system, so we'll see how that goes. I think that one's on your radar a little bit to change the progression just a tad from what I can see with your new system. We'll see how that goes. Fixed platooning rigging issue. 42 other videos, but that would be nice. Somebody mentioned make a skill level requirement in order to platoon so that you don't have these bot platoons running around, sitting in corners, things like that. Re-tier some tanks that are lagging and up-tier overperformers. This is something I heard fairly recently. I hadn't really thought about, but it's not really a bad idea to potentially relegate or advance tanks in tiering, or to make it slightly dynamic, or to make things actually tier 8.5 that gives a different weight. Now, I know that's going to really jack with your matchmaker, and to be honest, I'm pretty happy with where the matchmaker sits right now, in my opinion, but it is something to think about. Some tanks at tier 8 do feel like tier 9 tanks, And it would have to do with performance. If they started to stink it up, then maybe they get relegated back. Just something to think about. EBRs, I agree with this. They should slow down more when they have tire damage. You did that once. I don't think you did it enough with the EBRs, although they're not nearly as big a problem. This one I'm going to chuck out, my friends, and I know your stance on it is niet. There's going to be no change to RNG. There is apparently some skills that are going to modify that slightly, so maybe that's a little bit more open at this point, or you are a little bit more open to that. We'll see how that works with the skill thing, whether it matters, and I assume you're going to take some data out of that. But it's a standard, plus or minus 5, plus or minus 10, plus or minus 15. For me, I'd chop 5 off it, put it plus or minus 20, give it a shot, see what it looks like. I think that potentially a sandbox or an arcade cabinet with something like that would be super interesting. Really an arcade cabinet with shooting exactly where you aim, that kind of stuff. Food for thought. Fisherman's Bay, this is a specific map. You know what I'm talking about. The bushes in the middle, they don't work. I'm not really sure. Maybe they're just too close and burn through is just too good, but they also seem like they're not very good overall. This one, I think people would absolutely love. A tow rope, or if you turtle, a timeout to where you are flipped back on your tracks. So you don't have to sit there upside down and explode. I'm going to go back to EBRs here real quick, Wargaming, because I think it's absolutely ridiculous that the EBRs can run around like a sprayed roach, do parkour off of things, and 99.9% of the time land on their wheels. Whereas if you're in T50-2 or you're in your Manicore or whatever you're in, you hit a little rock and completely flip over and now you're stuck. Please give us an opportunity of some kind, something that can get us from being turned over, other than our friends who then sometimes get hit with team damage because they're trying to turn you over. If you're the last one bumping into somebody and they're in the water or something and you're trying to get them and help them turn over, and then they get killed, all of a sudden the game says you're the guy who killed them. That is arse. I'm just going to say it. That's dumb. It's dumb, all right? Very dumb. Improved map rotations, I think that's a big one. For me, it would be maybe a little faster in the rotations or more maps in each group of maps. It does get stale if you sit down and do a session, to be quite honest. But that brings us to more maps overall, which we'll get to in a minute. Plus or minus 1 matchmaker. I'm going to throw that out. There's a couple things in here I don't necessarily agree with. I put them there because the community sent them. Also so that you know people are thinking about it. I think you know people are thinking about this one. It's kind of a very common topic. Plus or minus 1. I happen to like plus or minus 2. So there you go. We're not all in lockstep. I'm not here saying that these are the things that the community absolutely demands or wants to be done. Some people do, some people don't. Remove drowning for Artie. On the one hand, you got to be happy when the red Artie drowns, but on the other, it is annoying when Artie runs into the water and denies you hit points, because it can screw people over for missions, for marking, and all kinds of things. So I don't know what the answer is for that. Maybe just not allowing them to drown, or potentially take them out of the game but leave the hit points there. And I realize that is rife for abuse. You just have people jump in the water, but maybe you just make it for artillery. I think if you look at the numbers, I'd be willing to bet, and I'm sure you've done this, Wargaming, I believe it's a majority of the drowners are artillery. All right, I'll just chuck that out for you. Miscellaneous. A way to make tech tree tanks premium, that would be really cool, even if it was just for a limited time. Have events where people can spend X amount to make your whatever tech tree tank basically a premium for a week or a month or whatever. Lots of possibilities there. Free training rooms and the ability to do it solo. I know this is my understanding is that a good portion of the reason that's not true is the setup for the game and the server side stuff. But if it was possible, it would be really nice if you could go into a training room and run around in the maps yourselves and check things out. All right. Free is the other thing people don't like. They don't like paying all the money for the credits to shoot things. That would also be nice. We already talked to premium. We did that twice. XP locked in tank after fully researched should be available without gold. I would kind of agree with this. My problem with this one, to a large extent, is you can be cruising along on your field mods and not really pay attention that you've unlocked the last one. Next thing you know, you've got 20, 30, 40,000 sitting on a tank that you can't do anything out without paying for it. That's kind of annoying. Maybe if you convert it without gold, it's a worse conversion. there's an option right there. Running total and how many times you killed a player. This was a suggestion I thought was kind of cool. That would be a lot of tracking. I don't know what that would necessarily take, but you kill Billy 10 times and you get a little medal or something like that. Toggle to turn off the aim assist. This is the part where it sticks to the ridge because it's trying to help you auto aim. Auto aim is not exactly the word, but help you compensate for the cursor or the pipper grabbing onto terrain and things like that. Some people would like to just have that turned off. Crew books. Yeah, why can't we buy any of the crew books at any time, at least for something? Very strange on that one. Trading events. A lot of people are a little bit upset with that because the conversion is generally a bad deal to them. But they're saying, what if I could stack a few to get another tank? Possibility, something to think about. And in-launcher pop-up, letting people know that there's a patch or a micro patch coming. That would be huge. That would be really nice. I know it's put on the forum. So I think it's sometimes in the news cycle on the launcher. But a pop-up that came up and just said, hey, dummy, we're resetting in 30 minutes or whatever the case. Most games have that. I'm just saying. Most games have that. Allow a reroll of the daily bonus mission. Man, I would absolutely love that. Sometimes you get some of those. And honestly, I'm going to be honest with you. Sometimes I get, say, the 4 kill in a game one. I just get up and walk away. I mean, it's not that I can't do 4 kills in a game, but that is really, really a what-if kind of, it depends kind of mission. And I guess at the end of the day, some of those missions are meant to be that way. But in terms of trying to keep somebody around and playing the game, you give them something that's supposed to be a fairly easy daily thing, and then you give them kind of that one, they're going to walk away. They do. I hear it all the time. People just say, I'm out of here. As a side note on that, please fix the one that requires 7 critical hits in a game. That one's ridiculous with your HE changes and stuff like that. The critical hit missions are an absolute mess. I'm just going to chuck that one out as one that came to me as I was thinking. You really need to rework your missions for the campaigns, especially vis-a-vis the critical ones, because they're insane at this point. They need to be looked at. Find more uses for blueprints. Allow people to sell them or trade them in for things. I've said this multiple times. This would be very cool if you could take some of the things like that, or decals or other things, and just a large amalgamation, a big number of these, and trade them in for something smaller, just so there's something to do with them. That would be very cool. I think we did that fairly recently, and I was well received with the blueprints, as I recall. Now we're about to have, or when you see this video, will have already started, but the lion build thing does that. So a little bit more of that with other stuff. Doesn't necessarily have to be a big tank or something major, but the ability to turn things in for something else, potentially smaller. That would be cool. Expand the options on how to use bonds. Maybe use them to convert free XP credits and gold. I like that idea. That would be very cool as well. For maps. All right. I think you're doing a pretty good job with at least conceptually working on maps. Guido's opinion only. I've seen a lot of small changes in an iterative process, which is impressive because it's not something that this company has done up until the last maybe year or two, potentially. I'd like to see that, the speed of that increase. I think everybody would. And the entire community is asking for maps, whether it's old maps coming back, whether it's new maps. We've gone through a couple of the recon missions, I think 3 now, and only 1 or 2 maps total have come out of that. I honestly, when that recon mission started, I thought we were going to start seeing all kinds of maps start rolling in. And I will say that the maps as they're released are beautiful. And I know there's a lot of work involved because when we played on them, they were very kind of basic in terms of the prettiness of it. But at the same time, I think people are willing to have a little less prettiness and a few more maps. So I just chucked that out there. Introduce them faster. I like the idea of dynamic maps. I know you're working on that with the Zeppelin thing and the airplanes crashing. I'm not really sure how that's going to be implemented because I can already think of some issues with that, but we'll have to wait and see how that's actually done. Because in a couple of cases, you showed it in the middle of the game, and depending on where the stuff crashes, that could really change the advantage one team or the other has. And I don't necessarily think that's a great idea mid-game, mid-match. But I do think that if you had maps with some dynamic areas, a rock that moves, a house that changes, it doesn't even have to be that much. A few little changes or additions to that map, and you really don't know which one it is until you get there. That would be cool. Keep people guessing, keep things a little bit fresh. Throwing that out, food for thought. Yeah, like I said, some of that appears to be happening. We'll see what happens with that dynamic stuff, which To be quite honest, it looks like a lot of flash, and to me, maybe in different gameplay possibilities. The replay would be nice if you could do it without leaving the game, meaning you could run a replay in the UI. That would be actually really cool. End cards, I would really like to see the end cards be part of the replay. So at the end of the replay, the player's end cards would come up, or at least some stats at the end. That would be very useful. That's really kind of a niche thing for people who watch replays or for content creators, but it would be really nice to have that. All right. I am going to talk about reversions here only because I got this a lot, and I think you know a lot of these things in terms of how people feel about it, but I'm just going to chuck them out. We'll go through them very quickly. I don't happen to agree with a whole bunch of these, but people send them to me, and we'll chuck it out there just for food for thought, just in case it stirs, and for the rest of the community as you're watching this video, just in case it stirs a little bit more of the juices and gets you thinking about other cool things that could happen. But the things that are out there is remove improved and bounty equipment or make it widely available. I think that's kind of a common comment. That is going to be added into this new experimental equipment. Again, a whole nother video or series of videos of why we have 4 pieces of equipment and 4 ways to get them. That's a little bit insane, to be quite honest. So we'll just leave that reversion like that, but know that people are thinking about it. I know there are people that are irritated about low noise exhaust and Commander's vision system. Again, for me, I like them because I like scouts. I can see how people who don't have scouts, there is a big drop off from tier 7 to tier 8. Tier 8s can use the CVS and tier 7s can't. That really crushes tier 7 light tanks, to be quite honest, especially if they're dealing with a tier 8 in the game or a tier 9, God forbid. Rollback high explosive shells changes. I don't know about that personally. There were some secondary and tertiary effects, i.e. the critical hit missions is one example. When you change those, I think you can still get there if you're careful with your HE. So overall, I don't think it's too bad of an idea. But I think from Artie's standpoint and people who like the KV2, they would like to see you roll that back. Returning equipment and consumable slots to lower tanks. I know there's a lot of people that don't like that. Tanks used to have, as we all recall, 3 slots all the way across, no matter the tier or whenever it started. I don't remember how low it went. But now you have to kind of move up. I don't think that's a huge big deal, but just know that people are thinking about it. People don't like the field modification. Honestly, and I heard this from another CC, to be quite honest, for the most part, I ignore field mods. I turn them on. I do it for the passive bonuses occasionally. I do it for the bonus slot for the equipment, obviously. The rest of it, I don't even use it, man. I tell you what, it's just not something I use. Rollback fun tank. There's a couple fun tanks. There are some tanks people are a bit irritated that you change. For example, the ELC, BIS, Skoda, T25, Su-85B. Generally, these are lower tier stuff. I'll leave it at that. Restore wide developments tree for low tiers. I didn't even know people were irritated by this, but apparently when you changed your tech tree around, some people didn't quite like that. I wasn't really on board with it. I didn't think it needed to be streamlined. I liked and enjoyed the wonkiness of it. I will say, though, that it is easier. There is also a pain point that we didn't mention here, and it has to do with crew, which we did mention earlier, and that is to smooth flow the crew a little bit so that you don't have these situations where the radio operator hops from person to person. I think, based on what I can see in your new crew system, potentially that's been worked on, so we'll have to see how that one works out as well. And then, of course, the old stun SPG. Now, those are all reversions. I did not get a lot of stuff like remove EBRs, remove ARTI, all the standard remove stuff. If that would have happened, I probably wouldn't have mentioned it anyway, but I didn't really get much of that kind of stuff. A lot of this is really good, solid requests. And I'm not saying it's good and solid that you should do every single one of them, but they all, I think, bear a little bit of thinking about, and the possibility that maybe we can tweak, you, obviously, I don't have anything to do with it, but maybe there can be some great quality of life tweaks. And really, I think, at least in my community, we would love to see some more of that effort, vice trying to build a new mode. I'm just chucking that out. A little bit more care and feeding of the current community. The UI, the battle UI, tweaking things, making it a little better. Stop abandoning stuff, i.e. the Hall of Fame, all that kind of thing. some efforts towards that. Maps, new maps, balancing maps, which you're doing some of. Thank you. Balancing tanks, which you're doing for tech trees, but for some reason refuse to touch rentals, or not rentals, premiums. Would love to see you do that. So some of that's in the pipe, some of that is being worked on, and that is well appreciated and well accepted and liked by the community. But there's a lot of other little things in there, and there's just a few of them. Now, for everybody else out there, if you have more suggestions, if you looked at one of those and said, no, that's not exactly what I meant, or I'd like to tweak that, or hey, here's an addition, or here's something completely new, please send that to me. Once again, Guido at 1212gaming.com. Once I get all the second tranche of information in, then we'll do one final. I'll reorient some of these things in here, and we'll come up with a top 10 or something like that of things that can probably be worked on. So WoT needs fixing, my friends. All right, great game. Love it. Having fun, but an effort to maybe fix some of the rough edges. That's all I've got, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We will see ya.